we look it up in the dictionary. What is procrastination? We'll find something like area of magic and sparkle because new
Yeah.
unexpected things happen. For the right situations, let's go slow so that we're actually able to go fast. It's lovingly called the spray and pray approach. Come up with an idea and hope it sticks somewhere.
Welcome to the Productized podcast, where we explore the minds of the most innovative entrepreneurs and leaders in product management and design. For our listeners, take the opportunity to learn more about product topics from over 25 speakers and trainers at our upcoming Productized Conference 2024 in Lisbon, October 3rd and 4th. Tickets with summer discount are now available at www.productized.co. We hope to meet you there.
So today my guest is Sabrina Mach. Sabrina is Head of Innovation Service at ThoughtWorks. Her passion is to help established organizations create innovation so they are able to continuously make new ideas a reality. Sabrina will be a featured speaker at this year's Productized Conference with the topic Methods for Product Leaders to be Comfortable with Procrastination. Sabrina, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Margarita. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm really happy and excited to have this conversation with you. And I'd like to quick start with some top of your mind questions. So please don't think too much. Favorite app?
Favorite app? Well, I'm actually going to show you my Aura ring and the accompanying app.
Mm-hmm.
I love it because it combines physical devices without a screen with giving me all the health data that I'm interested in on my phone. Plus, I keep getting new features all the time, even though I bought this ring 2 years ago. So I love it.
Amazing.
It's part of my life, integrated into what I do every
Cool.
day.
I've never used it, but I've seen it. People using it seems very cool. For sleep, that's sleep statistics and things like that, right?
It started with sleep data, uh, specializing in that. So it's also an interesting example about innovation, right? You get your niche. They specialized on sleep data. And then over time, more and more features got added. So now it also tracks your daytime activity. It automatically recognizes when you're walking or running, and then adds that to your activity count, your steps, your kilometers, your calories, whatever you're interested in. And also looks at your sleep data and then combines everything and says how fit you are for the next day. So if it sees that your heart rate was up at night, it might say, "Hey, it looks like you had a bad night. Take it easy today." So it's a
so
really
nice.
empathic app. Yeah, it doesn't say like,
Wow.
"Oh, I didn't sleep well. Just push yourself." No, it looks at the data and provides you the recommendation in the way that you can make your own decision. So it doesn't just assume that you should go one or the other direction, but presents you with what it's learned and says, "Hey, if you're not feeling good today, take it easy. It's totally okay."
That's so nice. That's a really good example of innovation and technology being used for the good.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the topics that I wanted to discuss with you, Sabrina, in this time that we have today, it's about actually the topic that we'll be bringing today, in this year to the conference, which is methods for product leaders to navigate procrastination. And for me, this is truly an intriguing and exquisite subject, um, because many of us constantly fight procrastination and feel like it's something that shouldn't be there, and we try to, like, we are not empathetic with those feelings. Um, Yet you are going to present a topic that encourage procrastination and how to deal with it. It's a fresh perspective, and I would like to ask you, um, why do you empathize the importance of embracing procrastination as a product manager?
hmm So I actually advocate for procrastination, of course, in the right situations.
Mhm.
But the really hard thing to know is like when's the right situation to go slow and avoid the bias to action, because I think that's very much the time we're living in. It's speed of change. We feel that we need to race forward continuously. And especially if we think about innovation, that's something where we want to be fast, quick to market, quick to deliver value. And it might feel that we don't have the time to go slow, to think, and to look deeply at what kind of problems we're solving. So that's why I'm saying for the right situations, let's go slow so that we're actually able to go fast.
Mm-hmm.
And rushing ahead doesn't always enable us to create value quicker. Sometimes we rush ahead and we create a product, an idea, and then we find out when we release it to market, it doesn't meet customer needs. And sometimes that's due because we might have had a bias towards a preconceived solution. And we thought, oh, great, let's build this. Let's launch it to market quickly. But we didn't take the time to think about what problem is it solving and what are unanswered customer needs. And in that situation, that's actually a really good example for when we should go slow. And I say, in that sense, procrastinate, delay the action of building, because if we look it up in the dictionary, what is procrastination? We'll find something like it's the unnecessary delaying of a task that must be done.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, we want to create a new product to deliver value to customers. So you could say that's a task that needs to be done. Why should we delay that? Why should we wait? But especially in those situations, we need to go slow, and it might feel counterintuitive, right? We might feel the urge, the market's moving. We need to be in there. Everyone's talking about the latest technology. Let's be there and play in the same field. But especially in that situation, I would say let's procrastinate the task of building and take the time to understand customers deeply, understand where their current pain points, what are their needs, what are underserved needs. And there's actually so many. Once you go deep into customer research, you find that so many things haven't been solved. And there's so many ideas that we could take to market. So going deep and delaying that task of building will help us to create value faster.
Yeah. So, if I understood correctly, you are an advocate that this taking time period should it's more on the beginning. So when understanding and with research, so understanding customer needs, understanding the problem exploration part.
Yes, that is one area. I do see it also in delivery teams. So when we've validated our idea, we've said, let's launch this, and we're now constantly evolving the product, and adding more features and more slices of value that we bring to customers. There's also situations when teams end up racing forward without, again, taking this time to stop and think, is this still the most valuable thing to build? Sometimes we create it because someone's put it on the roadmap. And if we're in the ideal situation that is completely customer driven, where we are lean and have small slices of value and also adapt the roadmap as we learn, that is less common. But many organizations today are still in that transformation journey from project to product mode. And there it can happen that we're focused on creating the next feature and creating the next feature that was planned many, many, many months ago. And since planning that, we might have learned new things about what creates value for customers. So even when we're going into scaling up product, or even coming to a mature product that we iterate and continuously improve, even in those situations, teams sometimes forget to take the time to stop and think and relook at, is this still the most valuable thing to build? Or have we learned something in the meantime that tells us, 6 months ago, we thought this was a great idea, but now we realize, based on customer feedback, it's not the most valuable thing to build anymore. And then there's the hard decision, right? Which is to say, we're not going to build it. We're going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it's hard, right? That's also where a kill decision has to come in, to say, even though we thought it was a good idea, we now have strong indications that we
Yeah.
shouldn't be building it. So that can create tension because we might have promised the roadmap to someone. And that's where you then have the challenge of managing expectations around um, what was planned versus how we should be moving forward to create
Mm-hmm.
the value which the organization is really looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is difficult balance because uh, at the same time that what you are saying makes total sense, which is we need to uh, be constantly asking ourselves if what we will build it makes sense, if our next action makes sense, and that might be also be correlated with the effect that the action will have in our team. So if it's
Yeah.
is something very small, okay, just do it. But if it's something that it's very big, will take a lot of time, or maybe it doesn't take a lot of time, but you cannot be reversed, then you should probably procrastinate a bit. Um, but so at the same time that we have this part, at the other on the other side of the our plate, we kind of have the industry saying, many industry experts of in product management saying that uh, do it to learn, like constantly build, do it fast. It's do fast or fail fast. There's a saying like
Mm,
that.
yes.
It sounds much better than I said it. So these are two opposite forces, that are pushing. Can you please provide examples of situations, you already gave some, where procrastination can be beneficial, and
Mm.
when the other force, the dark side of the force, is more beneficial?
It's funny that you call it dark side. Remind me to come back to the question. I just want to pick up on the dark side because it sounds like there is the right or the wrong approach to a situation. And I think
Hmm.
it's much more nuanced, and knowing what's the right approach for each situation can be really tricky. Sometimes we need to have the bias towards action and learn our way forward. And that
Hmm.
especially when we are in for complex problems, we can't analyze our way to a solution. We need to experiment to learn our way forward.
Hmm.
And then there's problems that are more clearly and well defined. And there we can have a bias toward action and just move forward. So if we think about uh, the checkout of an online shop, we could say, well, that's a solved problem. We can just use good or best practice to move forward. If you think back a few years ago, before uh, Amazon invented their checkout, one-click checkout, we might have said it's a solved problem, right? You enter your name, your payment details, and you go through the process. But Amazon decided to say, actually, let's look at this as an unsolved problem. How can we
Hmm.
innovate there? How can we change it? Looking at it as a complex problem and then coming up with a new innovation in that space, which was the one-click checkout. So it depends on where your focus is also on creating value and optimization. And you probably don't want to reinvent everything around the product. There's parts where you want to use best practice, and there's other parts where you really want to innovate and stand out from the competition. So
Yeah.
I think there isn't a right or wrong. It's just what is your strategy and how do you want to shine as an organization? Where do you just take best practice to move forward fast? And where do you really spend the time to go deep and to innovate and come up with something unique? So I think that's just on the dark side.
Hmm.
I think it's much more gray shaded, and what we need to be aware of is that it needs to be a conscious decision on whether we move forward with the good or best practice, or whether we say, hey, let's go deep here and really change something and make a different impact.
Hmm. So yeah, so totally got your point, and also this reminds me, like one of the things that one of the guests that was here in the podcast said, was related to OKR. So when it's a complex problem, you cannot really define an OKR like let's hit this target, because you are killing innovation and creativity by making metrics, So like if it's a problem that you know how to solve it, you can just like do the to-do list. If not, and if no one ever solve it, or you want to like innovate, you need to give that time, that space for innovation to come out, to come
Yes.
up.
And now that might sound like that you can't have any measures during the
Hmm.
innovation stage, but actually you can. What needs to happen is that those measures are different than for the clear domain.
Hmm.
So we can measure speed of learning. How often are we talking to customers and users?
Yeah.
How quickly are we testing different concepts? And also, how many ideas are we throwing away?
Yeah.
Because when we're innovating and we only find that every idea we have, customers love, we are probably either not very innovative because we're just doing something people already know, or we're not asking the right questions.
Hmm.
So there's definitely measures that we can have at that point that help us measure innovation,
Exactly.
but also, yeah, give that space for procrastination,
Yeah.
learning, going deep, but still looking at how how quickly, what's our rate of learning? Are we moving forward? Are we getting stuck somewhere?
Hmm. Yeah. So your OKRs became hypothesis related, uh, where you have a set of things that you are testing, and trying to understand if this will work,
Yes,
and then it comes what you're saying, like how many ideas are we throwing away, how many customers are we talking to, and what is also the quality of our insights.
yes,
It's also
yes.
because, yeah, and it comes from the quality of the questions as well, of course. um yeah.
You asked something earlier that I didn't quite answer, which was move fast and break things. Sometimes I think it goes. And how does that go with procrastination? I decided to pick up on the dark side, and you had
Hmm.
asked how does that work with procrastination? And there was one really interesting aspect is we can generate lots of ideas and build small experiments and see if they stick, right? So that's just, yeah, a bias towards action. Let's just make things and see if customers, if it resonates with customers. Um, there's some interesting statistics around that. And we see this also with startup statistics, right? Between 10 to 20% of those ideas are successful. 80%, more than 80% fail.
Hmm.
Now there is another approach that one can take. So the first approach that we just said, come up with ideas, test them and see if they stick. 20% success rate. Sometimes it's lovingly called the spray and pray approach. Come up with an idea and hope it sticks somewhere. Another approach, it goes back to understanding customers deeply. There's actually, if you want to look up the statistic, it's in the Jobs to be Done book from Ulrich on outcome driven innovation, where he talks about that if we start by understanding customer needs and also identify which of those needs are underserved and then feed that into the innovation process, we can get to a success rate of, wait, you're gonna you're gonna quote me on that. I think 76%, something like
Hmm.
that. So there's a significant difference in uh, if we take that time to procrastinate, if we stick with that concept and go deep and understand customer needs, we can increase the
Yeah.
success rate of our innovation.
Yeah.
And often when I speak to customers, so our clients, organizations who want to innovate, they say, how can we de-risk our innovation process? And the best way to de-risk your innovation process is not to blindly race forward and build things and hope that they will work, but taking that time to understand the problem.
Hmm.
I think there's also a nice quote that goes around, fall in love with the problem, not the solution.
Yeah.
So that's maybe one example is really falling in love with the problem, spending some time there understanding it, and then thinking about, okay, we've identified those problems. We prioritize them and see, we're going to pick this one problem that we're going to solve. And then we can come up with 100 ideas of solving it,
Mm-hmm.
and then test which of those 100 ideas answer that underserved need in the best way.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we can increase
Yeah.
our success rate for innovation.
And that's very interesting what you're saying. And for me, it reminds me of action with intention. So, like, if your intention is to increase, like, of course, the companies have OKRs to met and to end financial struggles, but I think it's extremely important to be to like the problem that is being solved, or at least to have some empathy for the customers. So I think with that setup, with that mindset, you will much easier follow that approach of let me really understand who are we serving and what are their problems, instead of
Yes.
just let's try this and see what happens, and see if it sells. It's a
Yeah,
different mindset.
it is. And I think one thing that's also really, really powerful, and the best organizations do it, companies moving to product mode still find it hard, is not just getting product leaders and designers to fall in love with the problem, but giving the space for our developers to do the same.
Yeah.
I've seen situations where, yeah, development teams just ran forward because the item was on the roadmap and started building something, but design was not involved yet. And what would have been much more powerful is to say, you know what, we're going to wait 2 days for design to join us and to
Hmm.
align. In the meantime, so that would mean a development team being idle for 2 days. I can feel people having a heart attack on the other end of the microphone, but developers can use that time to also fall in love with the problem,
Hmm.
research in that time. What does it mean for the people we serve by creating this? They can join research, usability research sessions, and really build that empathy, and then align together with design
Hmm.
on, okay, what are we actually building?
Yeah.
And in the end, we create something that's more valuable. Plus, our time to value is faster. Because what I've seen in situations where development teams just race forward, they create something and then realize, oh, it's not actually what would solve the problem.
Yeah.
So I've seen things being thrown away after like a few sprints, 2 months later, and restarting because we thought we moved fast by moving fast. And in
Yes.
that situation, waiting and going slow would have actually helped us to get the problem solved for
Hmm.
customers much faster.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's important to say, like, it's this what you're saying, waiting and move and going slow. It doesn't mean not doing anything. It means
Yes.
asking more questions, actually
Yes.
asking more questions. And I see exactly the point that you are saying. I see it like being increasingly more important as the complexity of the product increases as well. Increase as the complexity technically increases, because then you want to start to build new stuff and improve your product, and starts to become much time consuming and harder because there are more
Yes.
things on the table. So when you have your engineers with the mindset of what are we actually solving, what is the customer journey, because then they can think of a solution that is efficiently, technically efficiently, but based on on the customer journey, and not how can I shift this right away.
Yes. And even more fun and interesting is doing your ideation with developers.
Hmm.
I've been in sessions where developers in my team came up with the best ideas, not
Hmm.
just for the technical side, but also for how we build that interaction with the customer. Um, so not only do we get better ideas for the technical side, but also for what we can create for customers, because there's another perspective coming from another lens at the problem. So I think that's also super valuable.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's where the job starts to be really, really fun, is when uh, product manager, designer, and engineers, they have separate roles, but there is the gray area becomes bigger because there is a area where they all participate. Like the engineers can go into research sessions, and also product managers can be more involved in the technical side and understanding what's behind and why it why a simple toggle is not shift immediately, because there is complexity behind, and then they can also explain that to the VP of product, and also yeah, this when it works as a team, it feels like that, and it's really great.
Yeah. And maybe I wouldn't call it the gray area where we can mash things together, but maybe the area of magic and sparkle, because new
Yeah.
unexpected things happen that we would not have been able to create on our own. Because that's the value of different perspective, is that the synthesis of that comes up with something bigger than just the individual parts
Yeah,
themselves.
exactly.
Hey, summer adventurers, we hope your summer is as bright as today's episode. Before we get back into our fascinating discussion, we've got some exciting news to share. Do you want to elevate your product management skills? Then don't miss the Productized Conference 2024 happening from October 2nd to the 4th. It's going to be epic. Imagine this: top-notch workshops, insights from industry leaders, and a vibe that's bursting with innovation. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. So while you're enjoying the summer breeze in this episode, make sure to grab a ticket. We've got a fantastic summer sale offering 20% off, but only until July 31st. All access tickets are nearly sold out, so act fast. And let's create unforgettable moments in Lisbon at Productized 2024. See you there.
You touched on the topic a few moments ago, which was that with innovation and doing this right, there are we will have to quit projects. It's part of the job, and we'll have to accept it. And actually, quitting and knowing where to quit can be sometimes be a life savior of
Yes.
teams and of companies in the ultimate instance. So yeah, you argue that quitting is a crucial component of innovation, of the innovation journey. um, and I would like to ask you, well, we already kind of explore, but why is it essential in your opinion that this happens,
Hmm.
and how can we, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's this is probably one of the hardest things to do, right? Because when we identify an opportunity and think about a solution, we get really excited and maybe attached to the idea. And then to talk about killing it, quitting at some point, that's really hard, especially if we've maybe now invested 3 months, 6 months along the way. It's a very hard conversation. So one of the ways we can make quitting easier is to define it up front. So what
Mm-hmm.
are our kill criteria before we start? And we can also look at it two ways. So I've tried two separate approaches for this. So one is actually we start an initiative and we define kill criteria, at which means if we see this, this, and this, it's an indicator that it's not a good idea. Let's stop it. And then we make an intentional decision to say we stop.
Mm-hmm.
Another approach is to say, well, this is a wild new idea. Let's invest 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and have just that predefined time box. So in a way, we're saying we're only going to spend that time. And then we can say, well, but if we see a positive indicator, we will decide to continue. So it might almost sound like the same thing, but one is like we've predefined that this initiative will end, uh, and only continue if we see a positive indicator after that. And the other one is saying, let's start, let's experiment, and after 8 weeks or 12 weeks, we get back together, we sit down and see what's there. If we
Mm-hmm.
see any of the indicators that we've defined, we're going to stop the initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, why the difference? Predefining that it's only 12 weeks and we don't continue unless we see something positive, uh, can help the team to feel better about it, because we've already decided it will only be 12 weeks
Yeah.
unless we see something positive. So we say, here's 12 weeks where we explore an idea, we learn. And then after that, we take away the learnings and feed that into our product development.
Mm-hmm.
And if we see positive indicator, we continue. So if we think about the hard feelings that we sometimes have with, oh no, my God, we have to stop something, that kind of helps alleviate that. One challenge with that though is, so it helps the team, but and also it's a different way maybe of setting expectations with stakeholders
Mm-hmm.
who otherwise might start promising the roadmap, start selling it when you're just thinking, well, this is an early experiment. But at the same time, you might end up in start-stop situations. So because you've said we're only going to spend 12 weeks, to then continue might be harder to then get buy-in again and so on. So
Mm-hmm.
there is a trade-off. On the other hand, yeah, if we just define the kill criteria, our engagement or our initiative runs unless we say stop. So we're able to be faster. There is no start stop, but there's different expectations that are associated with that. Like, this is going to keep running. We're going to move from a proof of concept to a minimum level product. We're going to launch it. There's different expectations attached to that.
Mm-hmm.
And if we then say kill, that might be hard for the team. It sometimes also might be hard for the leader in that organization to say stop,
Mm-hmm.
because still in organizations that are moving to product mode, who are still on that journey, failure is still scary. And saying, oh, we stopped this after we realized it didn't work so well, it's a different kind of messaging. So
Mm-hmm.
there's two ways to those, to using kill criteria. And depending on the context we're in, we might use it in different ways because there's different expectations that are associated with that.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I imagine that defining kill criteria is only possible when you kind of already know what you are going to build or where it's going to impact. So defining kill criteria comes with more uh, knowing of the problem, and
Yes.
the time frame thing is more on the we really don't know what's going to come up or to come out of this. Um, and another thing that I was thinking when you were speaking is that uh, we that idea of killing that it comes with negative emotions, that oh, we actually are not going to deliver anything out of these 12 weeks of work. But if teams came out of that 12 weeks of work with an output of let's say adding to a software of user insights, the insights that they got, and they are stored there, and that they will never be like it's actually not a tangible output. Like, I have learned this stuff and they are stored in here, everyone can see it, and I'm going to remember to be able to access this
Yes.
information in 1 year. And maybe it's not valuable anymore, but I would know that 1 year ago the industry was like this, and now it moved in this direction. So this also this is a piece of information. It's data.
Yes. Yes. And that learning is valuable. So this learning log that you describe is really important for
Hmm.
organizations to keep, because sometimes ideas are also too early. So
Yeah.
capturing what the hypothesis was, the learnings, and being able to dig that out later and see, well, the conditions have changed. Let's look at this again, maybe a couple of years later, and see maybe this has value now. Uh, Keeping this, recording it, and adding this to the learning log is very valuable, and also something that still gives you that feeling of achievement. Um, and we've definitely been in situations where we've worked with clients that said, "Oh, we have this idea for the space. We want to do something in the IoT predictive maintenance space," and we said, "Cool, let's explore it." And the outcome of that discovery was the recommendation to not proceed. And that was also hard for the team because everyone, of course, wanted it to be successful. But knowing that we've just managed to help the company avoid an investment of millions of
Yeah.
euros, dollars, pounds into an idea that once it reaches market will not get traction because the business, actually in this case, the business model didn't work.
Yeah.
That's exceedingly valuable. And learning for us also to tell those stories from another perspective that isn't like adding more to the world, but also helping to make decisions when we don't create something. That also has value. Maybe that's a new story that we need to learn to tell. It's a harder one, but
Yeah.
just as important.
Exactly. And also, like most of the times with quitting a project, it doesn't mean you're not going to do nothing. Like there's always 1 million things to do. So the story that you can tell, the narrative that makes sense is so last quarter, we have launched this, and that are things that we have known for ages that our customers really want. They are not very sexy projects, but they clearly add value, and we have learned that we are not going to move forward with this because of these reasons. And,
Yes.
and because we did not move forward with this, we were able to deliver this piece of like, I don't know, maybe it can be we were able to rewrite our app in a new code language, and now everything is much faster and efficient. Oh,
And I
great.
think that's a really important point, right? Because imagine we don't kill the bad idea and we continue with it. It means that the time, the money that we're spending on cannot be spent on other things because all organizations have limited resources. So it's
Hmm.
always a decision. Do we do one or another? And if we decide to continue something that doesn't look promising, but we have a backlog of ideas where we see potential, not killing the bad idea means that the one that might be, your unicorn idea does not get built.
Hmm.
So you want to
Yeah.
be fast on kill decisions so that you can try out the other product ideas that you have to see if they are the ones that will accelerate yourself forward.
Yeah. Absolutely. And also giving taking into consideration that developing something, like, we should do it fast, but there's also like a thing of don't be too light-hearted, because uh, launching something to the world, um, like it's very it's hard to decide what to build, but it's even harder to decide what to deprecate. And and when we launch something that is not that yet, but then we still have some traction, sometimes a bit of traction, and some users start using it, and then you have legacy there. You need to keep running it to keep solving the bugs that appear. No one really use it, but some of them use, so you cannot deprecate, because you already have some clients that have expectations towards that, and you can end up with a bag of um, f- features that are not that uh, don't get that many clients, but get some, and it's now it's a really a gray area to be.
And that's the hard part when you're in the midst of it. How do you then decide? And there's also a really nice strategy to take when you've moved along, because also your kill criteria need to evolve from along the way. Um, but one strategy that we can also use is one bias that we fall into when we've been building for a while is the sunk cost fallacy, which is why it's so much harder to say stop and to
Hmm.
decide what do we actually not continue, because we've invested the time. There is now customers, but if we imagine ourselves to be coming to the situation uh, for the first time fresh, and someone asked us to invest in it or to decide, what do we take forward and what not, what gets stopped. Imagine yourself coming to the first time and hearing about it. Would you still say, let's continue, let's do this? Or would you say, actually, uh, with a fresh mind, I look at it differently.
Hmm.
And it might sound like a very simple thought experiment, but it really works. I've used it many, many times, and stepping out and saying, like, imagine, someone presented this to me and said, Sabrina, what should I do? How would I look at it? Even though it's my own engagement. That really helps. That when we're in the midst of it, it helps us to kind of step out and think a little bit more clearly around what makes sense to take things forward.
Yeah.
Because again, if we keep some of the parts of the product that aren't used by many people, and that slows us down, again, it means we're not doing other things that we could be doing.
Sabrina, it was really lovely talking with you. I uh, I would like to ask you a few more questions to close this with a
Yes.
good tone. So, 3 books that you recommend that can be product or non-product.
Nice. I'm cheating. I wrote them down so that I
Yay.
don't forget. So
Already
you
knew.
you see the light in my glasses. It's getting dark here. 3 books. So if people want to get better at quitting things, there's the book from Annie Duke, and it's called "Quit: The Power of Knowing When to Walk Away." It's very, very valuable for us as an individual, but also for organizations to think about what strategies can we use to make quitting easier. The next one that I'd love to recommend is the Corporate Explorer by Andy Binns. And what I found really interesting about it, and benefit of hindsight, it's totally obvious, but when we think about innovation, it's not just about creating new things and throwing them out there, but it's also about change. And how do we get people, of course, to adopt the new idea and change their behavior? But it's also around changing the organization, because we're creating something new that has to be adopted by the core of the business. And how do we actually enable that? So we can't just think about creating new things. We also need to think about how do we actually facilitate that change in the organization so that it gets to be part of the core. And the last one is from Jeffrey Moore, Zone to Win. And it talks about, the challenge of bringing, again, new innovation to market, and the tension of the business as usual part of the organization that has their established processes of doing things. And then we come with innovation that kind of sometimes rips everything apart and says, let's do things differently. And how do we enable that process, again, to bring that into the core of the business? These are my 3 books I'd love to recommend.
Thank you. And what would be what is the best advice for that you ever received in your career?
Best advice I've ever received in my career. I think everything that we do is about people and relationships. That would be the most important one. And one thing that I definitely didn't appreciate when I started out, I thought, like, it's about doing the thing and creating impact. And it is, but it's all about people and relationships to make that happen. And I think that's probably one of the most valuable pieces of advice that I've received.
Yeah. Finally, where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn or on Medium.
Nice.
Sabrina Mach should be easily findable.
And also on Productized Conference in October this year.
That's
so
true.
Please come. Yeah, so Sabrina, it was really a delightful chatting with you, and I hope to reconnect with you soon in October. And yeah, that's it. Please join us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Margarita.